What's going on, Wrestling News CC family? Welcome back to the channel where we break down the biggest stories in sports entertainment. Before we dive into today's absolutely insane story, make sure to smash that subscribe button and ring the notification bell because you do not want to miss the exclusive content we've got coming your way this week. Today, we're talking about a jaw-dropping story that has shaken the very foundations of WWE. If you thought the Bloodline saga was over, think again. Because Jacob Fatu, the Samoan Werewolf himself, has just realigned the battlefield in the most shocking way possible. After months of tension, betrayal, and power struggles, Jacob Fatu has officially aligned with Roman Reigns to protect him and destroy Solo Sikoa and Matteo. Yes, you heard that right. Fatu has turned his back on Solo after the events of Money in the Bank 2025, and now stands by the side of the original tribal chief, Roman Reigns, as the family war escalates into an all-out civil war. This isn't just another wrestling storyline, folks. This is a seismic shift that's going to reshape the entire landscape of WWE programming for months, possibly years to come. The implications are staggering, the emotions are raw, and the violence that's about to unfold is going to be absolutely brutal. So grab your favorite snack, settle in, and let's break down how we got to this earth-shattering moment that nobody saw coming. Hashtag backstory recap, 1 to 3:30. Let's rewind and walk through how we got here, because understanding the history makes this betrayal even more shocking. The Bloodline, once a dominant and untouchable force in WWE, started to crumble after WrestleMania 41. Roman Reigns suffered a humiliating defeat thanks to a shocking betrayal by Paul Heyman, who turned on him and sided with Seth Rollins. Think about that for a moment. Paul Heyman, the wise man who had been Roman's most trusted advisor, the architect of his championship reign, suddenly decided that Roman was no longer worthy of his loyalty. The betrayal cut deep, not just because of the loss, but because it came from someone Roman considered family. Following Roman's departure from WWE television, Solo Sikoa stepped into the spotlight. He took control of what remained of the Bloodline and rebuilt it in his image, bringing in the fierce and unpredictable Jacob Fatu, along with the young but hungry Matteo. On the surface, this looked like a natural evolution. Solo was Roman's cousin, after all, and it seemed logical that he would step up to fill the leadership void. But here's where things get interesting, and this is something that casual fans might have missed. Behind the scenes, cracks had already begun to show. Fatu, despite appearing loyal to Solo, was growing more and more resentful. The disrespect was real, and if you were paying attention to the subtle storytelling WWE was weaving, the signs were all there. Solo saw Fatu as nothing more than a pawn, a weapon to use for his own glory. In fact, there was a moment captured on SmackDown weeks before Money in the Bank where Solo was caught on camera calling Fatu, all gas and no brains. Now, if you know anything about Jacob Fatu's background, you know that's not just disrespectful, it's downright insulting. For those who might not be familiar with Jacob Fatu's incredible journey to WWE, let me paint you a picture of why Solo's comments were so offensive. Jacob Fatu isn't just some muscle-bound enforcer. This man is wrestling royalty, a third-generation wrestler who has paid his dues in promotions all over the world. Before coming to WWE, Fatu was the undisputed king of Major League Wrestling, holding the MLW World Heavyweight Championship for an unprecedented 819 days. That's over 2 years of dominance, folks. He wasn't just a champion. He was the champion, the face of an entire promotion, carrying it on his shoulders and elevating everyone around him. Fatu's wrestling style is a unique blend of power, agility, and raw intensity that's rarely seen in today's wrestling landscape. When he steps into that ring, he doesn't just wrestle, he hunts. That's where the Samoan Werewolf nickname comes from. He stalks his prey, studies their weaknesses, and then strikes with devastating precision. But more than his wrestling ability, Fatu has always been known for his intelligence and strategic thinking. Calling him all gas and no brains wasn't just wrong, it was a fundamental misunderstanding of who Jacob Fatu really is. And that misunderstanding would ultimately cost Solo everything. As the weeks passed after WrestleMania 41, the tension between Solo and Fatu became more and more obvious to those paying attention. It started with small things, Solo making decisions without consulting Fatu, taking credit for victories that Fatu had secured, and generally treating him like hired muscle rather than a partner. There were several incidents on SmackDown that, in hindsight, were clear warning signs. Remember when Solo ordered Fatu to attack a referee who had made a call he didn't like? Fatu hesitated for just a moment too long, and you could see the wheels turning in his head. Or how about the time Solo blamed Fatu for a loss to Cody Rhodes and Kevin Owens, even though Solo was the one who had made the tactical error that cost them the match? But the breaking point came during a backstage segment that aired just 2 weeks before Money in the Bank. Solo was addressing Matteo about an upcoming match when Fatu tried to offer strategic advice based on his experience. Solo cut him off mid-sentence and said, "I don't need advice from someone who thinks with his fists instead of his brain." The camera caught Fatu's reaction, and if you watched closely, you could see something change in his eyes. That was the moment, I believe, when Jacob Fatu made the decision that would change everything. Money in the Bank 2025 was shaping up to be a massive event for the Bloodline storyline. Solo had positioned himself as the new leader, with plans to capture championship gold and cement his status as the true heir to Roman's legacy. Matteo was scheduled for a crucial match that could have elevated his status within the group, and Jacob Fatu was set to face off against a mystery opponent that Solo had been hyping for weeks. But behind the scenes, something else was happening that nobody in the WWE universe saw coming. According to backstage reports that have since surfaced, Roman Reigns had been quietly reaching out to Fatu through intermediaries. Not to recruit him, not to manipulate him, but simply to acknowledge him as the warrior and strategist that Solo refused to recognize. These weren't grand gestures or dramatic meetings. They were simple messages of respect, acknowledgments of Fatu's contributions to the wrestling world, and genuine appreciation for his talent. Roman, despite his own struggles and exile from television, was showing Fatu the respect that Solo never had. This created an impossible situation for Fatu. On one hand, he had loyalty to the Bloodline as a family unit and the mission they were supposed to represent. On the other hand, he was being constantly disrespected and undervalued by the very person who was supposed to be leading them to glory. The internal conflict was eating away at him, and by the time Money in the Bank arrived, Jacob Fatu was a man torn between duty and dignity. Money in the Bank 2025 will go down in WWE history as one of the most shocking events ever produced. The main event featured Solo Sikoa in a championship match that was supposed to solidify his position as the new tribal chief. Matteo had won his earlier match, and everything seemed to be going according to Solo's plan. But then came Jacob Fatu's mystery match, and this is where everything went off the rails in the most spectacular way possible. The mystery opponent was revealed to be none other than Roman Reigns himself, making his shocking return to WWE television after months of absence. The crowd erupted when Roman's music hit, but what happened next stunned everyone into silence. Instead of the brutal confrontation everyone expected, Jacob Fatu did something unprecedented. He walked to the center of the ring, looked Roman directly in the eyes, and extended his hand in a gesture of respect. Roman, equally surprised, accepted the gesture, and for a moment, the two warriors simply acknowledged each other as equals. But then Solo's music hit, and he stormed to the ring with Matteo, demanding to know what was happening. What followed was a verbal confrontation that quickly escalated into physical violence, but not in the way anyone expected. When Solo tried to attack Roman from behind, it was Jacob Fatu who intervened, laying out Solo with a devastating superkick that echoed throughout the arena. The betrayal was complete, but it wasn't really a betrayal at all. It was Jacob Fatu finally choosing respect over blind loyalty, choosing to stand with someone who saw his worth rather than someone who saw him as expendable. The immediate aftermath of Money in the Bank has been absolute chaos within WWE. Social media exploded with reactions from fans, wrestlers, and industry insiders, all trying to process what they had just witnessed. The hashtag Samoan Werewolf turns was trending worldwide within hours, and wrestling news outlets couldn't publish articles fast enough to keep up with the story. But beyond the immediate shock value, this alliance between Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu represents something much deeper and more significant for the future of WWE programming. We're not just looking at a simple faction change or a temporary storyline twist. This is the foundation for what could be the most compelling wrestling narrative we've seen in years. Roman Reigns, the former tribal chief who lost everything due to betrayal, has found an unlikely ally in Jacob Fatu, a warrior who understands what it means to be undervalued and disrespected. Together, they represent a new kind of bloodline, one built on mutual respect rather than hierarchical dominance. On the other side, Solo Sikoa and Matteo now find themselves outnumbered and facing opponents who know all their strategies, all their weaknesses, and all their secrets. Solo's dream of building his own empire has turned into a nightmare where his most powerful weapon has become his greatest enemy. The implications for upcoming pay-per-view events are staggering. SummerSlam is just around the corner, and you can bet that this family's civil war is going to be the centerpiece of that event. We're likely looking at multi-match storytelling that could span several hours and involve numerous other WWE superstars who will be forced to choose sides. The wrestling industry's reaction to this storyline development has been overwhelmingly positive, with many veterans praising WWE's long-term storytelling and character development. Former WWE champion CM Punk tweeted, "This is what happens when you let wrestlers be complex characters instead of one-dimensional stereotypes." Wrestling journalists and analysts have been quick to point out the subtle storytelling elements that led to this moment, praising WWE's creative team for planting seeds months in advance and allowing the story to develop organically rather than forcing dramatic turns for shock value alone. Even competitors from other wrestling promotions have acknowledged the quality of this storyline. Tony Khan from AEW, despite being a direct competitor, tweeted his respect for the storytelling craft on display, saying, "Good wrestling is good wrestling, regardless of the company." But perhaps the most telling reaction has come from the wrestlers themselves. Multiple WWE superstars have posted cryptic messages on social media that suggest this storyline is going to have far-reaching effects throughout the entire roster. We're likely to see other wrestlers forced to declare their allegiances, creating a company-wide conflict that could redefine WWE's landscape for years to come. Looking ahead, the possibilities for this storyline are virtually endless, and that's what makes it so exciting for us as wrestling fans. The traditional bloodline dynamic has been completely shattered, and what emerges from the wreckage could be something entirely new and unprecedented in WWE history. For Roman Reigns, this alliance with Jacob Fatu represents a chance at redemption and revenge. He has the opportunity to reclaim his position not through dominance and fear, but through earning the respect and loyalty of a warrior who chose to stand with him. This is character development that goes far beyond typical wrestling storytelling. Jacob Fatu's position is equally fascinating. He's no longer the enforcer or the muscle, he's now a key decision-maker in what could become the most powerful alliance in WWE. His strategic mind and brutal fighting style, combined with his newfound partnership with Roman, makes him incredibly dangerous to anyone who stands in their way. But what about Solo Sikoa and Matteo? They're not going to simply fade into the background. Solo's pride has been wounded, his authority has been challenged, and his family has been torn apart. This is the kind of motivation that creates the most dangerous villains in wrestling history. Matteo finds himself in an interesting position as well. He's young, talented, and ambitious, but now he's aligned with someone who has proven to be a poor judge of character and an ineffective leader. Will he continue to follow Solo, or will he make his own power play? The possibilities are intriguing. Based on the current trajectory of this storyline and WWE's historical patterns, I have several predictions for how this could unfold over the coming months. First, I believe we're going to see Roman and Fatu target Solo and Matteo in increasingly personal ways, using their inside knowledge of the family dynamics to inflict maximum psychological damage. I also think we're going to see other members of the extended Samoan wrestling family forced to choose sides. The Usos, who have been conspicuously absent from recent programming, are going to have to decide whether they support their cousin Solo or their former leader Roman. That decision could split them as a tag team and create even more dramatic storylines. I also think we're going to see other members of the extended Samoan wrestling family forced to choose sides. The Usos, who have been conspicuously absent from recent programming, are going to have to decide whether they support their cousin Solo or their former leader Roman. That decision could split them as a tag team and create even more dramatic storylines. There's also the question of championship implications. Roman Reigns is undoubtedly going to want to reclaim championship gold, and with Jacob Fatu by his side, he has a much better chance of success. But Solo Sikoa isn't going to make it easy, and we could see a series of matches that determine not just championship holders, but the very soul of the Bloodline legacy. I wouldn't be surprised if WWE decides to bring in additional family members or create new alliances that cross traditional faction lines. This storyline has the potential to involve dozens of wrestlers and create a company-wide conflict that could dominate programming for the rest of 2025. What makes this storyline so compelling isn't just the immediate drama and action, but what it represents for professional wrestling as an art form. This is storytelling that respects the intelligence of the audience, that builds character development over months and years, and that pays off long-term investment with meaningful emotional moments. Jacob Fatu's decision to align with Roman Reigns wasn't just a shocking twist for the sake of surprise. It was the logical conclusion of months of character development and relationship building. It was a moment that felt earned, genuine, and emotionally satisfying, even as it was completely unexpected. This kind of storytelling elevates professional wrestling beyond simple entertainment and into the realm of legitimate dramatic art. When wrestlers are allowed to be complex characters with real motivations and emotional depth, the resulting stories resonate with audiences on a much deeper level. It also demonstrates WWE's commitment to long-term storytelling and character development. In an era where many forms of entertainment prioritize immediate gratification over sustained narrative investment, WWE is showing that there's still value in slow-burn storytelling that rewards patient audiences with meaningful payoffs. The fan reaction to this storyline development has been overwhelmingly positive, with wrestling communities across social media platforms buzzing with analysis, predictions, and appreciation for the storytelling craft on display. Reddit wrestling forums have been flooded with detailed breakdowns of the subtle hints and foreshadowing that led to this moment. YouTube wrestling channels have seen massive spikes in viewership as fans search for analysis and reaction content. The wrestling community is hungry for this type of complex, character-driven storytelling, and WWE has delivered exactly what fans have been craving. But perhaps most importantly, this storyline has brought lapsed fans back to WWE programming. Social media is full of testimonials from people who had stopped watching wrestling but returned specifically because of the Bloodline storyline and its recent developments. That's the kind of mainstream appeal that wrestling needs to continue growing as an entertainment medium. The merchandise implications are also significant. Roman Reigns and Jacob Fatu t-shirts, replica championship belts, and other branded items are likely to see huge sales spikes as fans want to show their support for this new alliance. WWE's marketing team is undoubtedly already working on capitalizing on this storyline's popularity. As we wrap up today's deep dive into this incredible storyline development, I want to take a moment to appreciate what WWE has accomplished here. This isn't just good wrestling, this is exceptional storytelling that happens to be presented through the medium of professional wrestling. Jacob Fatu's alignment with Roman Reigns represents everything that makes wrestling great: complex characters, emotional investment, surprising developments that feel earned rather than forced, and the promise of even more compelling stories to come. This is the kind of storyline that reminds us why we fell in love with wrestling in the first place. The family civil war that's about to unfold has the potential to be one of the greatest wrestling storylines of all time, and we're just getting started. The coming months are going to be absolutely incredible for WWE programming, and I couldn't be more excited to see how this all plays out. What do you think about Jacob Fatu's shocking decision? Do you think he made the right choice in aligning with Roman Reigns? How do you see this storyline developing over the coming months? Let me know in the comments below. I read every single one and love hearing your thoughts and predictions. Don't forget to smash that like button if you enjoyed this deep dive, subscribe to Wrestling News CC for more exclusive wrestling content, and ring that notification bell so you never miss our latest videos. We've got huge interviews and breaking news content coming this week that you absolutely don't want to miss. Until next time, this has been Wrestling News CC, and remember, in the world of professional wrestling, family isn't always thicker than respect, and sometimes the most shocking betrayals are really just someone finally choosing to stand up for themselves. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. If you thought tonight's story was wild, trust me, what happens next will blow your mind. So don't stop now. Click on the video right here on your screen to continue the chaos, the drama, and the inside scoop only we deliver. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button, give this video a like, and join the Wrestling News CC family, where the real stories of WWE come to life. See you in the next one.